What if there exists a book that no one can read? Not because the pages are damaged, not because the language is dead, but because the language itself might never have existed anywhere except in the mind of whoever created it. Imagine holding a manuscript, 240 pages of flowing text, elaborate illustrations, botanical drawings, astronomical diagrams, scientific notations. It looks like a medieval encyclopedia. It feels like a Renaissance masterpiece. But when you try to read it, nothing makes sense. The alphabet is unknown. The words follow no grammatical pattern. The plants in the drawings don't exist. The astronomical symbols point to nothing recognizable. The entire book is a riddle wrapped in vellum and bound with mystery. This is not fiction. This is real. In the rare book library at Yale University sits the most mysterious manuscript in human history. It has been carbon dated to the early 1400s. It has been examined by the world's greatest codebreakers, linguists, cryptographers, historians, computer scientists, artificial intelligence programs. Everyone who has tried to decipher it has failed. During World War II, the codebreakers at Bletchley Park, the same people who cracked the Nazi Enigma machine, tried to decode this manuscript. They failed. The FBI investigated it during the Cold War, thinking it might be communist propaganda. They failed. Modern supercomputers running advanced pattern recognition algorithms have analyzed every symbol, every word, every statistical quirk. They have all failed. The manuscript is called the Voynich Manuscript, named after the Polish book dealer who discovered it in 1912. And after more than 600 years, nobody knows what it says. Nobody knows who wrote it. Nobody knows if it even means anything. Is it a lost language? An unbreakable cipher? An elaborate medieval hoax? Or something stranger still? 1912. Wilfred Voynich is a rare book dealer, Polish by birth, based in London. He specializes in ancient manuscripts, religious texts, medieval illuminations, books that have survived centuries through wars, fires, floods, revolutions. That year, Voynich travels to Italy. He visits the Villa Mondragone, a Jesuit college near Rome. The Jesuits are selling part of their library to raise funds. Among the dusty shelves, Voynich finds something extraordinary, a manuscript unlike anything he has ever seen. It is bound in vellum, about the size of a modern paperback. 240 pages, heavily illustrated. But when Voynich opens it, he realizes he cannot read a single word. The text is written in an unknown script, flowing, elegant, confident, but completely incomprehensible. The illustrations are equally baffling. There are botanical drawings of plants that Voynich, an educated man familiar with herbal text, does not recognize. There are astronomical diagrams with symbols he has never encountered. There are strange scenes of figures bathing in pools connected by elaborate plumbing. There are pharmaceutical drawings showing plants being processed into medicines. There are pages of pure text with no illustrations at all. Voynich buys the manuscript. He brings it back to London. He shows it to experts, paleographers who study ancient writing, botanists who identify historical plants, cryptographers who break codes. Everyone is baffled. The manuscript comes with a letter, written in 1666 by a man named Johannes Marcus Marci. The letter is addressed to Athanasius Kircher, a famous Jesuit scholar. Marci writes that the manuscript had belonged to Emperor Rudolph II of Bohemia, who ruled from 1576 to 1611. Rudolph had purchased the manuscript for 600 gold ducats, an enormous sum. He believed it was written by Roger Bacon, the 13th century English philosopher and scientist. But there is a problem. Roger Bacon died in 1292. When scientists carbon date the vellum of the Voynich manuscript in 2009, they discover it was made between 1404 and 1438, more than a century after Bacon's death. So whoever wrote the manuscript, it was not Roger Bacon. Voynich spends the rest of his life trying to decode the manuscript. He never succeeds. When he dies in 1930, the manuscript passes to his wife. When she dies in 1960, it is purchased by a rare book dealer named Hans Kraus. In 1969, Kraus donates the manuscript to Yale University, where it remains today in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And in all that time, in all those decades of study, nobody has been able to read it. If this kind of mystery captivates you, if you want to understand why this manuscript has defeated every attempt at decipherment, stay with us. Because what we are about to explore is not just a historical curiosity. It is a challenge to everything we understand about language, writing, and human communication. Let us walk through the manuscript itself. Let us see what makes it so strange, so impossible, so utterly unlike anything else in human history. The manuscript is divided into 6 sections. Scholars have named these sections based on the illustrations, since they cannot read the text. The first section is called the Botanical or Herbal section. It contains 113 drawings of plants. These are not casual sketches. They are detailed, carefully rendered. The artist clearly intended to depict real specimens: roots, stems, leaves, flowers, seeds. Each plant is labeled with text in the unknown script. But here is the problem. Nobody can identify these plants. Botanists have spent decades comparing them to every known species. Medieval arbors, Renaissance botanical texts, modern plant databases. Nothing matches. Some of the plants have features that seem familiar. A leaf shape that resembles an oak. A flower structure that looks like a lily. But then other features are completely wrong. The roots spiral in impossible ways. The flowers have the wrong number of petals. The overall structure does not match any known family of plants. Are these extinct species? Lost botanical knowledge? Or are they invented? Imaginary plants drawn by someone with a vivid imagination and no botanical training? The second section is the Astronomical and Astrological section. Pages filled with circular diagrams, zodiac symbols, suns and moons and stars. Some pages show traditional zodiac signs like Pisces, Taurus, Sagittarius, but the text accompanying them is indecipherable. Other pages show elaborate circular calendars with concentric rings of text, 30 illustrations per ring, perhaps representing days of a month. But the calendar does not match any known system. The third section is called the biological section, and this is where things get truly strange. The pages show elaborate networks of tubes and containers. Figures, drawn in a naive medieval style, stand in pools or baths. The pools are connected by pipes. It looks like a bathing system, or a plumbing diagram, or perhaps a metaphorical representation of the circulation of fluids through the body. Medieval medicine was obsessed with humors, with fluids, with baths as therapy, but the specific system depicted here matches nothing in the historical record. The fourth section is the cosmological section. It contains several fold-out pages that open to reveal large circular diagrams. One famous fold-out shows 9 circular medallions connected by passages. Each medallion contains a castle or island. The entire image might be a map, or a cosmological diagram showing the structure of the universe, or a metaphorical representation of a spiritual journey. Nobody knows. The fifth section is the pharmaceutical section. It shows drawings of plant parts, roots, and leaves placed in jars and containers, as if illustrating the preparation of medicines. The text presumably explains the recipes. But since the text is unreadable, we can only guess. The sixth section is the recipe section. Pages and pages of continuous text. No illustrations. Just paragraph after paragraph in the unknown script. Perhaps these are the actual instructions. The formulas. The secret knowledge. But without the ability to read the language, it is just lines of meaningless symbols. The text itself is what makes the manuscript truly baffling. The script, called Voynichese by researchers, consists of about 20 to 30 distinct characters. Some look vaguely like Latin letters. Others are completely unique. The writing flows smoothly. There are no corrections. No crossed-out words. No visible signs of hesitation. Whoever wrote this was confident, fluent. They knew what they were writing. But the statistical properties of the text are bizarre. Linguists have analyzed the frequency of letters, the patterns of letter combinations, the structure of words, and the results don't match any known natural language. Some patterns are too regular. Some are too repetitive. Some word structures appear far more often than probability would suggest. It is as if the text follows rules, but rules that are alien to human language. Computer analysis shows that Voynichese has too much entropy in some measurements and too little in others. Natural languages have a certain statistical fingerprint. Voynichese does not match that fingerprint. But it also does not match the fingerprint of random gibberish. It exists in a strange middle ground. Too structured to be nonsense. Too strange to be a real language. If you are fascinated by mysteries that challenge everything we think we know, leave a like. Because this manuscript is not just a puzzle. It is a challenge to the fundamental nature of meaning itself. When Wilfred Voynich first revealed the manuscript to the world in 1915, it immediately attracted attention. During World War I and the years that followed, cryptography was evolving rapidly. Governments employed codebreakers to intercept enemy communications. These experts were confident they could crack any cipher. One of the first serious attempts came from William Romain Newbold, a professor of philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania. In 1921, Newbold claimed he had deciphered the manuscript. He said it was written by Roger Bacon and contained advanced scientific knowledge. Descriptions of cells seen through microscopes, nebulae seen through telescopes, devices that would not be invented for centuries. Newbold's method was complex. He used anagrams, transpositions. He claimed there were microscopic markings on the letters that contained the real message. But when other scholars examined his work, they found fatal flaws. Newbold was seeing patterns that did not exist. He was using methods so flexible they could generate any message from any text. His decipherment was debunked. Decades passed. The manuscript sat in obscurity. Then came World War II. At Bletchley Park in England, the Allied codebreakers were cracking the Nazi Enigma machine. These were some of the most brilliant mathematical minds of the 20th century. People like Alan Turing, who would later pioneer computer science. After the war, some of these codebreakers turned their attention to historical mysteries, including the Voynich Manuscript. They failed. The same people who broke military-grade encryption could not make sense of Voynichese. They tried frequency analysis, pattern recognition, substitution ciphers, polyalphabetic ciphers. Nothing worked. The manuscript resisted every technique. In the 1970s, the FBI acquired a copy of the manuscript. During the Cold War, intelligence agencies were paranoid. They thought the manuscript might be a communist code, a way to pass secret messages hidden in plain sight as a medieval curiosity. The FBI's cryptanalysis division studied it. They found nothing. The manuscript was declassified and returned to Yale. In recent decades, computer scientists have joined the hunt. Modern algorithms can process millions of patterns per second. They can detect correlations invisible to human analysis. Researchers have used artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, statistical modeling, every tool of modern computational linguistics. Some claim breakthroughs. In 2018, researchers from the University of Alberta used an algorithm that identified the text as possibly encoded Hebrew. But when Hebrew speakers tried to read the decoded text, it was nonsense. The algorithm had found patterns, but those patterns did not unlock meaning. In 2019, a researcher named Gerard Cheshire claimed he had solved the manuscript. He said it was written in a Proto-Romance language, a mixture of Latin and early Italian. He published his findings. Within days, medieval language experts demolished his theory. The decoded sentences he provided were ungrammatical, anachronistic, impossible for a medieval writer. In 2020, another theory emerged suggesting the manuscript used a Turkish phonetic system. Again, experts were skeptical. The decoded text made no coherent sense. Every few years, someone announces they have cracked the Voynich manuscript. Every few years, their solution is debunked. The manuscript remains unread. Why? What makes it so resistant to decipherment? There are three main theories about the Voynich manuscript. Each has evidence. Each has problems. None has been proven. Theory 1. It is a cipher. Someone took a real language, perhaps Latin or an early form of Italian, and encoded it using a complex algorithm. The text is meaningful, but it has been deliberately obscured to protect secret knowledge. Alchemical formulas, medical recipes, occult rituals, knowledge that was dangerous or valuable. Evidence for this theory: the text is too structured to be random. It has consistent patterns. Word links follow statistical rules similar to natural language. The author wrote fluidly, suggesting they understood what they were writing. Problems with this theory: no cipher from the 15th century should be this difficult to crack. Medieval and Renaissance ciphers were relatively simple. They used substitution methods that modern codebreakers can crack in minutes. Even complex polyalphabetic ciphers eventually reveal patterns. The Voynich Manuscript has resisted centuries of analysis. If it is a cipher, it is unlike any cipher that should have existed in 1400. Theory 2. It is a constructed language. Someone invented an entirely new language system. Perhaps for philosophical reasons. Perhaps as a universal language. Perhaps as a way to encode knowledge in a form only they could understand. Evidence for this theory: the text follows internal consistency. The same words appear repeatedly in similar contexts. There are patterns suggesting grammar, sentence structure, syntax. It behaves like a language. Problems with this theory: constructed languages are rare in history, and those that exist usually show clear influence from natural languages. Voynichese does not resemble any known language family. Why would someone invent a language, write a massive manuscript in it, and then never teach it to anyone? What is the purpose of a language no one else can speak? Theory 3. It is a hoax. An elaborate medieval or Renaissance forgery created to deceive. Perhaps the author wanted to sell it as the work of a famous scholar. Perhaps it was a joke. Perhaps it was an art project. The text is meaningless. The illustrations are copied from other sources or invented. The whole thing is smoke and mirrors. Evidence for this theory: despite centuries of study, nobody has found meaning. Perhaps that is because there is no meaning to find. The manuscript exhibits some properties consistent with randomly generated text. Some researchers argue that a medieval person with time and creativity could have produced pseudotext that looks meaningful, but is actually gibberish. Problems with this theory: the carbon dating proves the vellum is genuinely from the early 1400s. That is 14 to 15 calfskins. Expensive. Someone went to enormous effort and expense to create this. Why? Medieval hoaxes typically had immediate financial motives, but the Voynich Manuscript sat in obscurity for centuries. If it was a hoax, who was it intended to fool? And why is it so internally consistent? There are stranger theories. Some believe it is the work of an alien intelligence. Some think it is a record of a lost prehistoric civilization. Some argue it is a channeled text from spirits or angels. These theories are not taken seriously by academics, but they show how deeply the manuscript unsettles people. How desperate we are to find an explanation, any explanation, for something so profoundly mysterious. What makes the manuscript unique is that it exists in a category of one. It is not quite like a natural language, not quite like a cipher, not quite like gibberish. It is something in between, something we do not have words for, something that challenges our understanding of what writing can be. If you want to explore more mysteries like this, if you believe some puzzles are worth preserving even if they cannot be solved, subscribe. Because the Voynich Manuscript teaches us something profound. That human knowledge has limits. That some mysteries endure not because we lack tools, but because they operate by rules we have not yet imagined. In 1912, a Polish book dealer opened a manuscript and found something impossible. A book in a language that might never have been spoken. Illustrations of plants that might never have grown. A system of knowledge that might never have existed. More than a century later, that manuscript sits in a climate-controlled vault at Yale University. Anyone can view high-resolution scans online. Anyone can download the images, study the text, analyze the patterns, and many have. Thousands of researchers, professional and amateur, using tools from medieval paleography to cutting-edge artificial intelligence. And still, the manuscript remains unread. 600 years of silence. 600 years of keeping its secrets. If it has secrets, if it is not just the most elaborate and beautiful meaningless object ever created. Maybe that is the point. Maybe the Voynich Manuscript is not meant to be read. Maybe it is meant to be a mirror, reflecting back our assumptions about language, about knowledge, about meaning. We assume writing exists to communicate. But what if this writing exists to prevent communication? To create a space where meaning can neither be confirmed nor denied? The manuscript is a riddle that cannot be solved because it might not have an answer. And perhaps that is the most unsettling thing of all. We live in a world where we believe everything can be decoded, every pattern explained, every mystery solved if we just apply enough intelligence, enough computing power, enough time. The Voynich Manuscript says otherwise. It says some things will remain unknown, not because we failed, but because unknowability might be built into their structure. Like trying to solve a Zen koan with a supercomputer. The tools do not match the problem. If this manuscript made you question what knowledge really means, if it made you wonder about the limits of understanding, share this investigation. Because the Voynich Manuscript is not just about the past. It is about how we confront mystery in a world that has convinced itself mystery no longer exists. The manuscript remains at Yale, waiting for someone brilliant enough, or foolish enough, or lucky enough to be the first person in 600 years to read it. Maybe that person is you. Maybe that person will never exist. And maybe, just maybe, that is exactly how it should be. The book nobody can read. The language nobody can speak. The mystery that refuses to die. The Voynich Manuscript endures.